Hey guys, I'm LT.
And I'm Dan.
And welcome to BHK Outdoors, your beacon for all things outdoors. Right here Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on WILE FM 107.9 and AM 1270. So grab a cup of coffee.
Or chaga.
And for the next 30 minutes, let Dan and I talk to you guys about the outdoors. Well, welcome everybody to BHK Outdoors. I'm one of your hosts, LT Wright, and
I'm Dan.
that's Dan Coppins, your other host on the other end. I think, Dan, this would be an absolute perfect time to introduce ourselves.
Yes, it would. My name is Dan Coppins, born and raised in the state of Vermont. Grew up an avid hunter and been hunting and fishing in the Green Mountains. Moved to Ohio to raise whitetail deer, and then started making knives around the year 2000.
And my name is LT Wright. I grew up in Colliers, West Virginia. Moved away in my early 1920s, or in my early 20s, we'll say, and did construction work down in Northern Virginia. I know you think I'm a real old guy, but anyhow, got back, had the opportunity to move back to Steubenville, Ohio in 2000, and have been there with my lovely wife ever since. We raised up a beautiful daughter, and we're very pleased to be here. And now today, Dan and I own Blind Horse Knives and BHK Outdoors, and we are so glad to be here with you guys. And what we'd like to talk to you today is we had recently done a winter camping trip in the great state of Maine.
Oh, yeah, and that was quite an experience. If you've never spent a week in the outdoors in the wintertime, it's an awesome adventure.
Absolutely. You know, when you plan a trip like this, everyone has different reasons for going or reasons for wanting to do something. Dan, what was your main reason for wanting to take this trip to Maine? Other than I was just badgering you and saying, come on, you got to come with me.
That's pretty much what it was. And I'm thinking, you got to be crazy. A week outdoors in the winter. But it turned out that I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to test myself here and see if I can do this. I've always wondered, and in the back of my mind, thought, well, can I spend a night outdoors if I'm caught off guard hunting in the deep woods or something, and would I be able to survive? So I think I put all those fears to rest.
Yeah, a friend of ours, we've done some business with him before. His name is Tom Laskowski from survivalschool.com and Midwest Native Skills. He actually put the trip together, invited us along. A friend of ours named David Middleditch had actually invited us through Tom, and we decided this was a great opportunity to get out there. We got up there, and the trip was actually under a guy named Ray Wrightsey, and he is an expert Maine guide and a wonderful man just all the way around.
Yeah, he's a pretty laid-back individual. I mean, the first impression I got of Ray was that, this guy has definitely got some balance in his life, and he's got an aura about him that is just relaxed and laid back. He doesn't get excited over anything.
Yes, so let's get on to the trip. And anything with Dan and I is an adventure, even the ride up. We try to have fun with it sometimes. The only, I guess if you would say, there is bad stuff in everything. And paying tolls is one of those things that just aggravate me sometimes. But the best toll, I think, the whole time that we traveled was we had to go across the George Washington Bridge.
Oh, wasn't that something?
And I think that woman charged us $1 a foot.
Yeah, what was it?
It was about $13 to $14 just to go across that bridge.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
And it wasn't all that great. I mean, there wasn't that great of a scenery or nothing. It was just...
No. I think we could have went somewhere and got a steak for that. But anyway, we had to get across that bridge and find our way to Vermont. One of the first stops that we made, or not Vermont, I'm sorry, we're going to Maine this trip, on our way into Maine. One of the first stops we got to was a place called Kittering, Maine. And there is a store there, guys. And let me tell you what, if you've not been there, you need to go there. It's called the Trading Post, the Kittering Trading Post. And it is like a guy Christmas store, in a sense.
Oh, it is. I mean, I was running around like my head was cut off. Look at all the cool stuff that's in this one. I ended up spending about half of the money I took with me for the trip in the one store. I mean, I stocked right up on some wool gear for the trip, and I'm glad I did.
Oh, it was so bad that I had to buy his lunch the rest of the week, so he definitely spent a lot of money. I'll tell you what, up on the second floor of that place, it is so nice to see all the wool clothing that they had for sale. We had Johnson Woolen Mills, we had the Filson Company, And Mikey, what's that other one?
Woolrich.
Woolrich. And we had Woolrich. And to have stuff there in guy size, things that I could actually put on and fit, it was really nice to do some shopping at that place. And I can tell you this, I will be going back.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know about like the Johnson Woolen Mills or not, but that is a company from Vermont. It's been there an awful long time. I grew up as a Vermonter, wearing Johnson Woolen stuff for many years,
Yeah, this was a really nice store.
and it's American made too.
And it was American made. You're right, the Johnson Wool Mill stuff. And we made our way on up the highway, and right up the road from there is LL Bean. I get their catalogs. My wife shops in their catalogs. My daughter has bought me Christmas gifts from their catalogs. And to be there and to check out that store in person was fantastic. I had a really good time in there as well.
Yeah, my wife usually checks the mail, so I'm not sure I get that catalog.
Oh,
I would like to, but I don't think I
probably
get
do.
it.
She probably just keeps it from you.
Yeah.
Oh my
I think
goodness.
that's it. But that store, that's where I spent the other half of my money because
Yeah.
it was just awesome. There's so much to do and see in there.
Yeah, so and that goes for any trip. Always, you're trying to get to your destination, but maybe take a few minutes and check out some of these other things that we would have just driven by had we not just pulled in and checked them out and had a real good time doing that as well. So after we made our way through LL Bean, we went on our way right up to Ray's place, and we showed up, got to meet the guides, packed our gear into the teaching lodge that he had there, where we had our gear for the evening. It's just a little lodge that he had built. It has no running water, no electricity. He had just a wood stove inside, and it was a nice cozy place. And then we got to go down to his house, which is a Hogan that he has built for himself. And it was quite interesting when we started talking to him about building that home.
Yeah, that was pretty cool to listen to him say that he would cut 6 of those logs or so, and then he would go fishing. I mean, that just says a lot about the guy right there.
That's one of those things in life, and I think, and I'm very guilty of it as well as just anyone. We're too busy. We won't take the time. We're always in a hurry to get to the end, to get that finish done. But the enjoyment for him was laying a few logs and go fishing. And if we can maybe attack our lives and our work that way, it might change the outcome for us, because he sure was a different sort of person, wasn't he? In a
Yeah, he
good way.
was. I mean, you could just tell that he gets laid back because he takes time like that. He just does the work, and then he does the relaxed part. So I mean, we all could learn from that.
Yeah. And when you walked in the front door of this house, folks, I'm going to tell you what. To the left was a kitchen sink, and then that kitchen sink had a well pitcher pump on it. Okay, they don't have running water. They don't have electricity. He had a wood stove right to the side of that, and on the end of that wood stove was a tank that warmed and heated water, and then there on the end of that was a spigot that poured right into the bathtub. I mean, that just speaks simplicity and enjoyment right there, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess if you have company over, you could just take a bath right there together, whatever.
Well, I don't know, but it was such a simple way of living. You felt so comfortable being inside that place.
Yeah, it was definitely a cool place. I mean, the lighting, I think they have solar powered lights or something? It was.
Yeah, I think he had some solar panels and had everything set up on LED. And Ray and his wife Nancy were very nice folks to talk to, and we had such a wonderful evening just getting to know them.
Oh yeah, that's where they introduced me to chaga, which
Yep.
was pretty cool. And plus, boy, she can cook.
Yep, absolutely. We had a real nice time there. Well, guys, from there we spent the night, and then the next day we were getting our stuff gathered up to get ready for the trip. There probably were about 8 of us. A few of the guys flew in, a few of the guys drove in like Dan and myself. And when we had the next day, Ray came down and kind of wanted to go over everyone's gear to make sure people had the proper stuff, and he was going through the gear. And well, first of all, when Dan and I showed up, we had a Jeep full of stuff, and it's 2 guys, and we were going to bring the trailer, but we opted not to. We didn't want to take too much stuff. But when we got there, and Ray's going around the room, and he's looking at the packs and stuff, he got over to my pack, and he said, "Hey, is this your pack?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And he says, "Oh, that's not bad." And I said, "Well, this stuff, this and this and this go with it as well." And he's like, "I don't believe we can take all that." And well, I'll tell you what, that definitely set me back a little bit right there, because I thought I had just enough that I needed, and here he's telling me to cut it in half. Well, I tried cutting it in half, and then I cut it in half. It took me all day to get all my stuff down into a bag and a half. And then my buddy Dan, he
Oh yeah, that's when I headed out and I run back to the Jeep and I tore my bag apart before he got to see it.
yeah. So by the time Ray got to his bag, he had his about halfway down to where he needed to be. And let me tell you, he didn't have it all the way down. He still had a sled full. Don't let him fool you. He had just as much as I did.
Well, the dang sleeping bag takes up most of the room.
You know, and my excuse is I'm 6'3", so I figure all my pants are a couple inches longer than yours, so I surely have more stuff in my bag.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
But we got all that stuff gathered up.
How many fire steels you have?
I had first day, I think I had 4. So yeah, it's just one of those things. But we got our packs down to where we thought we needed to have them. And as we got all the vehicles loaded, and once you get 8 guys stuffing a few vehicles, then you're thinking again, boy, we still have a lot of stuff. So we got over to the put-in point, the entry point there, and they pulled out the toboggans.
Yes, right then and there is where we learned what a toboggan is, didn't we?
Well, I've always known that a toboggan is a hat, but apparently a toboggan is also a sled for you guys that are not from around here, where we all think that a toboggan is a hat. Dan calls them a toque.
You'd look funny getting all that stuff in your toboggan on your head.
But they had 4 traditional style toboggans with the canvas wraps that they put all their gear in. Luckily, Dan thought ahead, and we had a couple sleds in the Jeep, and him and I were able to put our gear on that, and we carried our own gear in.
Yeah, we had to do that because them other guys brought way too much stuff.
Oh, they did. Yeah, they were. Yeah, because we didn't.
And there wasn't room for our stuff on the toboggans.
No. Yeah, mine was almost as tall as I was trying to drag that thing through the wood. And by the way, I know when I said the word toboggan, you guys are thinking we had dogs. Well, we didn't have dogs. We had 2 men to a toboggan, and then Dan and I had our own sleds that we were actually trekking through the woods with.
Yes, we did, and that was quite an adventure watching you tip yours over every 5 feet.
Yeah, that and putting the bungee cords back on and that all, yep. Hey guys, today's program is brought to you by Self-Reliance Illustrated magazine. If you haven't got the chance to check out a copy of that, go to selfrelianceillustrated.com. It's a bi-monthly publication. It is available also in electronic version as well as paper. It has a lot of great articles on fire, water, shelter, food, edibles, some good do-it-yourself stories. One of my favorite things in there was what's in your pack, kind of letting you know who's carrying what and why they're carrying it. So check out Self-Reliance Illustrated, the magazine, at selfrelianceillustrated.com. We are teaching today's youth and passing on the travel knowledge. Selfrelianceillustrated.com. And Dan, getting back to the trip, after we got all those toboggans loaded and ready to go, Ray strapped on his toboggan and pa-ching, he was gone.
Yeah, he was. Never seen an old man go so fast.
I'm telling you what, you think, I can keep up with him. He's got, the little guy, he's got shorter legs than I am. Surely I can outwalk him. And let me tell you.
Yeah, but he didn't have half the gear on that we did either.
Well, that's another thing. After he pared down our gear, if you guys saw the pack he carried, this is what we used to carry to school to put our books in.
I couldn't believe he was going to spend a week in the woods with that pack.
But not only did he did well. He did it real well. Doing the toboggan, without the dogs having the 2-man sleds and all, we did a lot of traveling through the woods and across the ponds, across the frozen ponds. What do you figure, how far you think we went in?
Well, I don't think it was more than 2.5, 3 miles, but the uphill portions seemed like they were 5 miles or better.
I know that first 50 feet, I thought I was done. I was hoping we were going to camp at the end of the woods right there.
I thought it was pretty cool seeing 2 guys tethered to a sled pulling it.
Yeah.
They were like in a harness pulling the sleds.
Yeah, it worked out real well. I've never camped like that, other than what you and I have done, just a little bit, pulling sled for not really a long distance. But the difference of packing your gear to putting it on that sled when the weather permits, having the snow on the ground like it did, boy, that sure was nice.
Yeah, I mean, we brought snowshoes just in case it got too bad, but luckily we didn't have to use the snowshoes.
Yeah, I'd say most of the trip was about 4 to 6 inches. It did snow a little bit while we were there, and ice a little bit. It got cold. It was quite chilly a few of the times, but again, we had the proper clothes.
Chilly. It was like 1 below
Yeah,
zero.
it was quite cold, so we it made for an interesting trip, we'll say. We were expecting a little more snow than we had, but there was snow on the ground the whole time, and like I said, about 4 to 6 inches. Well, once we got across that pond there, which is another experience. If you've not spent a lot of time walking on an icy pond, you got to kind of learn how to walk.
Oh yeah, because this no, you just don't just store them right out there. You got to make sure that the edge of the ice is stout enough to hold you up, because it could be thin on the edges at times.
Right.
And also, if there's a down tree in the water or something, it could be weak around those trees and things like that. And we walked around a couple of beaver huts that
Yep.
were active to make sure that we had enough distance so the ice wasn't too thin around those.
I would say that the ice that we crossed was about 12 inches thick. And once we got on the other side, we could see the campsite up through the trees. And man, it was right up on the side of the hill in a bunch of boulders where there was no way to get the toboggans up there. So the toboggans stayed down on the ice, and we started making our way with our gear up to where we were going to camp. And Ray grabbed his one pack and was gone, and Dan and I made several trips with our stuff. But we finally did get to where we were going to set up camp, and the first thing that we needed to get going was shelter.
Well, yeah, because it was, well, we only had about 2.5 hours before it got dark by the time we got there.
Yeah, and by the way, it gets dark a little quicker up in Maine than it does here. About 4:30, boy, it was dark, and I was caught off guard by that.
Yeah, we did. We definitely had to hustle up and get something going. I recognized that there was a couple of down trees, so I stretched a tarp over those, added a couple more poles in there, and had myself a A-frame thing pretty quickly. Then I went around, started breaking the ends of the branches off the hemlock trees, which is called tipping, and you're breaking just the tips of the trees off where the softer needles are, and you just start laying them down on the ground in a shingle fashion and keep putting the butts of the stems into the ground and having them cup all the same direction so that they're cupped down so that none of the branches actually stick up, and it makes a pretty comfy bed.
I'll tell you what, I was real surprised with the combination of having the snow plus those pine boughs, then putting our sleeping bag and our bivy and our ground pad down. Quite comfortable, and actually that insulation with the pine boughs was warm as well. So I'm very impressed with the way that worked out.
Yeah, I don't think people took me seriously when I told them I was going to go to Maine for a week and sleep in a brush pile.
No, we absolutely set out to do that, and we did. We stayed outside the whole week.
Yeah, but you didn't get your shelter set up right away.
No, day number one, I went ahead and slept inside of one of the toboggans. We had all the gear out. So Ray said a lot of times if storm was come up, you don't have time to build shelter. You just create it out of your toboggan. So I wanted to give that a try, and took all the stuff out, put my bivy and my sleeping bag inside that, wrapped up in the canvas, threw a bungee cord around my lower half, and spent the night. And I got to say, Dan, quite comfortable. I even put pine boughs in the bottom of the toboggan to give myself a little more insulation. But I would do that again in a heartbeat.
I don't think I would. I couldn't do that. I
No.
watched you man up, and I said, I ain't doing that.
That was I have to say, I quite enjoyed that. Well, on day two, I had the opportunity to build a lean-to. Dan and I had a little camp spot with a big rock in front of us, and we were going to use that as a bit of a reflector fire. So I put a lean-to off of the A-frame that he built and covered it with a quick tarp and pine boughs, and it worked out real well. I think for the most part, we were comfortable for the whole week. Never really did get cold.
Oh, I got definitely chilly a few times, but nothing that I couldn't handle.
Right. You know what? When it did get cold, one of the things that we learned quickly was the importance of having a fire.
Oh, yeah, you're not going to do anything in the woods outdoors if you don't have a fire available to you when the temperature is down there.
Right. For all the gear that we had, we didn't have excess water. We carried in one canteen full, and I think I had another container to put clean water into. So fire to purify your water, which we had to chip the ice, which was, I'm going to say, about 12 inches to get down to the water. And then, again, not having a bunch of containers, it required us to start a fire and boil water around 3 times a day.
Oh yeah, you take those things for granted that you have water. So if you need a drink right now and you don't already have the work done, you're not going to get a drink for, an hour
Right.
because it's going to take you 10 minutes. You're going to boil if you really want to be super safe, which we were. We boiled for 10 minutes every time. And then you've got to let that water cool off or you can't drink it. So,
Right.
and then you got to keep it from freezing when it does cool off.
So it's a lot of work. We say just camping, but between boiling water and keeping fire going, because again, you're out having to get your tinder and your firewood. That's a good part of your day.
Yeah, it takes up quite a bit of your time making sure you got the wood.
Absolutely.
And one of the things about the containers is you want to make sure that you've got a stainless steel one. 'Cause we saw a couple of guys there that had the plastic ones and they didn't fare too well. Their water froze and they didn't have anything to drink.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to purify your water, but in the climate that we were going into, I think our best option was to boil, because we were guaranteeing, and again, with the fire, we're able to thaw our clean water, because that was one of the things that we found out after we got our water cleaned. Well, we have to store it. Well, as soon as we would store it somewhere, as cold as it was, the water would freeze, and then we'd have to heat it again. So your cycle of water, fire was just over and over and over.
Right, yeah, you had to keep it going.
Another thing majorly I think we learned about fire was the natural tinder. I'm a pre-prep tinder guy. I carry cotton balls and Vaseline. I carry dryer lint and all this stuff, and I will always do that. But I do think that you need to absolutely know your natural tinders.
Yeah, that was pretty important stuff up there. I mean, when we came across the yellow birch bark and peeled that paper-like stuff off of there, I was blown away by how fast that burned. It was almost like you had something started with gasoline.
Oh, absolutely. It is some phenomenal stuff. I wish we had something here in Ohio that worked just as quick as that birch bark, because that was an amazing stuff.
Yeah.
We did work a lot on fire that first couple days. Spent some time with Tom Laskowski on his one match fire, which I highly encourage you guys to go out and learn. That was quite interesting. Did some bow drill techniques. Another thing that I think was pretty important, the difference in fires: flames for boiling, your coals for cooking. We learned a lot about that. Using a rock as a reflector.
Oh yeah, we learned quite a bit about that.
Good and bad.
You learn that you start a fire next to a rock, that the thing can explode.
Yep, and can have big chunks crack down off of that.
Oh yeah, I think Dave on his fire had it blow right up. I mean,
Yeah.
spattered rocks all over him.
So those things do happen. And hey guys, just a reminder, today's show is being brought to you by Self-Reliance Illustrated, the magazine. You can check it out at selfrelianceillustrated.com. It's available both in print copy and in e-copy. Some great stories on fire, water, shelter, how-tos, do-it-yourself stuff, great reviews on gears. If you're a gear junkie like we are and you're always looking for the next best thing, Self-Reliance Illustrated has a lot of gear reviews. We have writers from around the world, and just a good all-around magazine for the self-reliant mindset. So that's Self-Reliance Illustrated, the magazine, and you can get it at selfrelianceillustrated.com. Hey Dan, in addition to the rocks and using the reflector fire, I think one of the interesting things that we did, we were just out for a hike out one day, and Tom stopped the whole group and he said, "Okay guys, you got 3 minutes to start a fire with anything you got on you or right near you."
Yeah, that was quite a challenge. I mean,
we're standing in 4 to 6 inches of snow, mind you.
Yeah, and it caught us all off guard because everybody's like, "Okay, now what do we do?" So you just quickly look around you and see what's available for tinder. And I know within 6 feet of where I was, there was some tinder, but it wasn't quite dry. It worked, but I didn't get it as fast as some of the other guys because it just wasn't dry enough.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, it also teaches you a lot about carrying a lighter, ferro rod, and matches. It was a great experience. And again, I have to say, although sometimes it was a little bit of a burden starting those 3 fires a day to boil that water, but in a week's time, we spent a lot of time starting fire with natural tinder and boiling our drinking water. A lot of us don't do that as much when we go camping, but to have a week long of doing it over and over and over, it definitely set it home for me.
Well, a simple thing like getting a cup of coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Usually when I get up in the morning, it doesn't take that long to make coffee. But when you're talking about boiling the water and making the coffee that way, that takes a whole lot longer.
Oh, you're right. And you know what? We also learned that the food that you carry, because you've got to eat, I guess, and it definitely requires, some of the food that you carry requires water. So here you are again. If you want coffee or if you want a mountain house type meal, you're going to have water. So we learned to balance pre-prepped stuff that we can readily eat, with the stuff that needs some prepping.
Yeah, I learned as soon as I tried eating the instant oatmeal packs, just putting them in my mouth without any water.
Yeah.
Sucks the water right out of your mouth. I mean, you can do it, but it's not great,
Right, it's definitely not the prepared. One of the things that we did have with us was a pepperoni stick. I enjoyed that thing for a couple days.
Well, you're welcome, Tom.
I know.
I'm glad I was looking out for you.
Yes, I'm glad you were too. And guys, I cannot preach enough the importance of a Snickers bar. Jeez whiz.
Yeah, I think there's guys there that would have killed for him. And if I'd have known Dave had as many as he did,
I know,
I'd have been right over there.
We'd have been all over that. But yeah, I'll tell you, one of the techniques that we do at night for sleeping is eat a chocolate bar before you go to bed. Keeps your stomach working all night. Helps keep you warm.
Well, some people say you can take a pat of butter too.
Yep, pat of butter, and even in a hot chocolate. I think the chocolate's the main thing. And this is something that I've been doing on all of our winter trips, so it was normal, and I think we had at least a chocolate bar for every night. I do kind of wish I had one for midday, because I think it would have made a little difference for me, for sure.
Well, I think now I learned about the cayenne pepper now too, so I think I might do some of that in the future.
Yeah, so we did learn a lot of things. Too much for us to go into all today, but there was a few other things I definitely wanted to talk to you guys about. The winter camping, again, we were doing it off of a bivvy and a sleeping bag. So another technique that we did was heated the canteen, put it inside your wool cap. I put it in the bottom of my sleeping bag, which ensured that I had drinking water that was unfroze the next day, but it also helped keep my sleeping bag warm and keep me warm during the night. Dan, we also used hot hands, those little packets.
Oh yeah, those things, I think those are well worth the weight that you're lugging to bring those. Because mine warmed my bag pretty good, and it was nice to have them in there.
Especially when you're just going from outside being cold, and you're going to jump in that bag and it's really cold. It's nice to drop a couple hot hands in there, let it pre-warm your sleeping bag for you. So that worked out real well as well. So I guess one of the main things that we wanted to kind of let you guys know today is camping is not just a seasonal, let's do it in the summer type thing. Don't discount winter camping, because winter camping is an absolute blast.
Yeah, and I don't think you can be too old for it, maybe, if you're prepared. 58 years old, and I did it, so I'm pretty well pleased with what I was able to do.
Yeah, and I think you kept up with the young guys just fine.
Oh, I was more than keeping up.
Okay, you did pretty good. But it's a good time, and I'll tell you what, Dan, you know what my favorite part about winter camping is?
No.
No bugs.
No bugs.
No bugs.
Well, I got bit by a bug while I was up there.
Oh, yeah? Which bug was that?
The winter camping bug.
Well,
I loved it.
The winter camping bug.
It was great. I'm going to do it again.
That was a great time, but I'm no bugs. I mean, it's not hot. I can put on clothes to stay warm, but boy, sometimes, that you get really hot in the summer and buggy. This is a whole different thing.
Oh yeah, it was great.
So guys, definitely don't discount your winter camping. A lot of you are hunters. Maybe look into the possibility of spending a few nights in the woods. Pack in, set up a tarp, reflector fire, and have a really nice all-around hunting season.
Yeah, because I don't know how many people have actually prepared for that. I mean, because it's a reality if you're a hunter that you may end up spending the night outdoors.
Absolutely. Hey, we would like to thank you guys for being with us today right here on BHK Outdoors. If you would like to give us some show ideas, we're always up for that. We have a bunch of them planned for you, but always looking to get some more input from you. You can reach Dan and I at radio@bhkoutdoors.com. That is radio@bhkoutdoors.com. Email us with some of your show ideas and your suggestions. We'd like to thank our producer, Mike Henninger, for hanging out with us today and helping produce a wonderful show. Join us here each Saturday morning at 8 a.m. for BHK Outdoors. All right, guys, thank you very much, and may God bless all of you.